Before we moving on to the next session, once again, as usual, we would like to ask for your kind cooperation in completing the survey forms. You may have any suggestions for the next edition of Cybersec Asia is happening on the next year. So please kindly save the date for the next editions of Cybersec Asia will happening next year during 28 to 29 January 2025. So please kindly scan the QR code, which is appear on the screen shortly, and complete the survey. Your feedback is valuable for us to improve our future event as well. And before we moving on to the next session, I would like to remind all of you that what is the highlight programs happening here at the main stage? At 11:25 a.m. this morning, you will listen from Gregory Pickett, founder and head of Cybersecurity Operation Hellfire Security, will share with us about insecure state of Thailand. And in the afternoon session, we will bring everyone to back at the main stage and explore with the panel discussion under the topics of navigating cybersecurity frontiers, threats and challenges across Asia, along with esteemed panelists from Malaysia, Singapore, India, and Thailand. In the afternoon session, you will listen from Kun Surachai Chatchalermpan, CSPO, Country Cybersecurity and Privacy Officer from Huawei Technology Thailand Company Limited, will be presenting the topics of the key challenges for software supply chain security and Huawei vulnerability management. From 2 p.m. to 30 p.m. onwards will be the talks about powering up to the modern SOC with an AI-driven security operation platform by Kun Nontana Anukrodilok, Cortex expert Palo Alto Networks, coming with Kun Pongsathorn Supawan, Technical Director, Exclusive Network. And in the afternoon session, we also have the session with Dr. Ratipong Puttachalan, Senior Manager System Engineering Fortinet, will update with us about best practices for securing hybrid and multi-cloud environment. And in the afternoon session, we also have the session by Kun Sathit Uputinan, Chief Technology Officer, DPM Thailand Company Limited, will share us on more details about the topics to bring everyone to engage more about cybersecurity. And don't miss the panel discussion will be another highlight in the afternoon session on securing the future, the role of education in cybersecurity. And I conclude with the topics of balance at the gateway, games of PWNs, the emerging threats of AI in cybersecurity by Dave Levis, Global Advisory Cisco. It's now time to moving on to the next session here at the main stage. Again, I would like to encourage all of you, don't be hesitate to drop your question by using this QR code, which is shown on the screen by now, located at the bottom of your left-hand side. And don't miss to choose main stage and submit your question directly to our admins. Your question will be bring to our speaker to answer your question at the end of each individual session. Now it's time to bring everyone to explore what the topic of insecure state of Thailand. By this topic, we are honored to have founder and head of cybersecurity operation Hellfire Security. Please welcome Gregory Pickett.
All right. So do I click on this to bring it up? Okay, good. All right. So I have about 20 minutes. There's actually a lot of content here. I'm hoping that I don't go too fast. But this is the insecure state of Thailand. A little bit scary, obviously, especially if you know what I do for a living. But the idea here is to share this information with you so that we can, of course, as we're all here to do, improve. My name is Gregory Pickett. I'm not only the founder, lots of founders here, but head of cybersecurity operations. Some contact information there. Some of you might have questions after today. I hope some of you have some questions after today. Now, you may ask, why me in particular? Not only why am I here, but why am I sharing this specific information? It's because I like to break things. Primarily, I'm breaking security. Someone tells you you can't do something, that's not possible. You know, I'm young. I try to push those boundaries. I see if I can, and I find out that I'm pretty good at it. So breaking security means hacking, right? Several large multinational banks, right? Casino in Cambodia, telecommunications company in Thailand, digital asset exchange in Thailand, automated teller machines. And I'm not talking about a bug, right? Found a bug, turn it in, get a CVE. This is traditional, old school, unauthorized access. Okay? Several large multinational banks, that's domain admin, casino in Thailand, compromised server on the perimeter, telecommunications company in Thailand, and then compromising an ACS that gave me complete control of approximately 4 million CPE devices. Now, CPE is customer premise equipment. That's that little box at home. Right? And it goes down and down and down, right? Digital asset exchange also, I won't get too much into that. I don't want to get anyone in trouble any more than I probably am today. But we're talking about significant access, significant unauthorized access. Okay. One theme we have here, and what I want to bring into this talk, what this talk is really about, is about critical infrastructure. Right? So big problems in critical infrastructure. And this kind of, you can see there, I'm beginning to scratch that surface. So doing what I do, being very interested in Thailand, spending a lot of time here, I've had an opportunity to talk to people, to work in the industry, to do some research. It's a nice way of saying hacking. Right? So talking with professionals. We've talked with local security practitioners. We see their engineering and support approaches. Right? What we find is they are solutions and certifications focused. The certifications are primarily in the solutions. We've also worked with local companies, performed many penetration tests here over the years, submitted statements of work, seen other statements of work, probably not supposed to. Right? We understand how tests normally proceed here. We understand the general approach the other teams take here. We've even had the opportunity to do a head-to-head. Right? Us targeting an environment, another team here targeting an environment, and seeing the difference up close and personal. As I said, I do research. Right? Ad hoc, obviously. You can find my work in the BTS. I was counterfeiting tickets. OLT, ONT is the optical line terminal, optical network terminal. That ONT is your CPE. So it led me to the ACS server. Actually, might be redundant there. Auto configuration server. Special requests. That's a digital asset exchange. Right? So looking at these big pieces, right, what we might consider critical infrastructure. Very interested in what other big issues were out there within Thailand's internet cyberspace, right? In cyberspace. So we started an intelligence program, which is not much different than a military intelligence program, where you're essentially just going through and looking at what opportunities are. What is there, what's living there, what it's doing, what kind of posture it has. So we have an ongoing survey of the perimeter. We identified prefixes belonging to Thailand via BGP. If you want to connect to the internet as a builder and operator of a network, you essentially form an autonomous system. You get a number. Start doing route summarizations. Basically, you have all these different networks under your care. You're going to summarize them into one direction to head. You're going to advertise it as a prefix. And they get assigned to a country, right? You're in Thailand, of course, and it's identified with Thailand. The prefixes, we classified those, are all those that were identified with Thailand as transportation, banking, government, etc. We had 8 systems working their way through those prefixes, still going through and doing it right, not a fast process. And we're identifying live systems and their listening services. Okay. Results of that survey, We are collecting that information, curating it, right? Human being involved, well, you can't really get anything done, not effective without a human being and being involved. So there's a manual review, points of entry identified, and what we're looking for is infrastructure pieces with an opportunity for entry. And by being infrastructure, critical infrastructure, then we have a significant impact, right? If something happened here, there would be significant repercussions. If there's immediate entry, if we see that, right, we're going to go ahead and do it. We're going to take some evidence, we're going to snapshot it, because we want to tell someone. We're not going to leave this sitting out there. Right? The remaining has been set aside for special attention. Okay? Now, what we've identified in doing this, and this is sure of a shock to you, is that there's systemic issues. And that's why we're here today, right? To share this with you, we try to get this conversation going. Don't always have the best of luck, even with the companies that have these issues. So sharing it with you is the best next best thing we can do. What we're seeing a lot within Thailand is externally facing management planes. Switch and router management councils, externally facing, TACX, right? AAA, if I get this right. Authorization, authentication, accounting, maybe close, right? Essentially controls access to all the other devices. And of course, the auto configuration server that was also externally facing. Externally facing internal applications, intranet applications, monitoring platforms, provisioning or line of business applications. We're not talking about portals for customers, we're talking about portals and other tools and utilities for support staff, engineers, externally facing, right? We're also seeing built-in alerts used for alerting purposes, right? Single criteria alerts. There's a big problem with single criteria alerts. Why do we see these? Instead of correlation the way it used to be, because you're moving to analytics instead of correlation. Now what happens with analytics is you're dealing with one criteria. Right? One criteria is really not enough to distinguish between a false positive or mistake and a true positive or malicious act. Failed log on is a good example. Characteristic of both mistaken and malicious acts. Right? And in fact, there is significantly more mistakes than there are malicious acts. If you ask a company, you say, okay, how many of your alerts are false positives? We're seeing 90%, 95%, 96%. Single criteria alerts get you lots of garbage. And so you see that. They're wasting 95, 96% of the time. Okay? You need additional criteria. You need correlation in order to distinguish malicious from mistaken. Now going through this, we're looking at some root causes. Okay, why are we seeing this? Solution-based engineering. It's inevitable, really, but we need to fight against it. We need to fight against finding easy solutions. We're working with a checklist, whether it's going to be best practices or a framework. You're going to deploy the required solutions, and then you take your solution and you go in search of a problem. Now, that's how you get all these externally facing pieces, right? Your router configuration, your router console, your switch console, your TACX, because you're hanging it off that firewall. Got the firewall, now you're going to hang something off it. Whatever you have to hang off it, you hang off of it. Right? It's solution in search of a problem. And you hope that it fits your particular problem. But hope is not a strategy. An over-reliance on audits. Right? A VAPT is just a VT or vulnerability test. Right? There is no PT in the VAPT. Right? What you're essentially doing is adding on, well, you have a scanner, software scanner, you're adding on a human scanner. Right? Essentially going through a list of things that you've learned, that you've practiced, and you execute it just like you would a vulnerability scanner does. They've got a list that goes through it. You go through your own list. Not much different than an audit, right? And an audit is just a guess. And the third root cause, what we see here, is secondhand or tool-based knowledge. Using tools for more than collecting data, basically. Many tools also attempt to provide an assessment. They draw a conclusion, and you're accepting the conclusion too much. If you're looking at the data yourself, coming up with your own conclusion, and making sure it matches the tool or not. If it doesn't all right, we find that often these tools are guessing, and it's not going to necessarily match the tool. In fact, it typically doesn't match the tool. Because again, they're just guessing, right? Draw your own conclusions. Have your own first-hand knowledge of the situation. Okay. Now, there's difficult fixes here, but it's not insurmountable. It's more about approach than anything else. There's no great secret. Threat modeling. This is not my invention. It's been out there. It's well known. What you essentially do is you lay out your environment, the assets that you need to protect. When you do that, you can then understand what kind of attacks are going to be possible against those targets. You're going to be if you're starting with your problem, you're going to identify the controls that you need to protect those assets. You're also going to know what sensors you need. You're going to know then if an attack happens, what sensors are going to see this and what they're going to record. That allows you to define your requirements for your protections, for your detection, for your alerting, for your response, right, the kind of capabilities that you need. You're going to start with problem-based engineering as opposed to solution. Then you go shopping. Okay? It's been impossible for us to get anyone here to do any sort of threat modeling. Don't want to do it. They want to go shopping. Overhauling architecture. Right? Establishing zones of trust. Using choke points for access control and detection. Don't try to look at everything. Don't try to protect everything. Draw everything in where you can sit all of your sensors, you have all of your controls. Small space, a lot cheaper, a lot easier to keep track of. Understanding the use of the DMZ, both within the organization at the edges, right, and with a VPN to cross significant boundaries. Those externally facing applications should have been in a DMZ somewhere. You should be VPNing into that. Okay? We see lots of VPN out there, just not necessarily used properly. If you're talking about zero trust, at some point you need to understand that SaaS is not enough. Even in a cloud-based organization, not everything is cloud. Right? You're going to find there are points of entry that don't involve the cloud. You need to start with your problem first. Look at your environment. Put SaaS where it needs to be. Then you'll see your gaps. And you're going to come up with a second solution for that. Okay? And oftentimes, it's just about how you deploy what you already have. Right? So maybe only buying once, getting a lot more out of it by really applying your architecture properly. And genuine penetration tests. That's very scary for people. It is. Right? Teams come in there, they ask for help. They want subnets. They want to use a scanner. Right? No. Right? You want to measure your risk accurately? You position your white hat exactly the way you position your black hat. No help. All right? Now, if your threat actor you're expecting is a malicious user, yeah, they're going to get credentials. You're going to give what you give every other user. But no help, right? They're not going to be just sitting there collecting vulnerabilities. You're going to do what a black hat's going to do, right? You're going to reverse engineer the environment. You're going to identify the path forward. You're not looking for breadth, because most of this is garbage. A hacker's not going to take a second look at it. They're not going to touch it. It doesn't get them anywhere. You need to reverse engineer, get that path forward. These are going to be your gaps in your target environment, and you're going to go that way. You're going to go deep, the meaningful vulnerabilities. Right? You don't have money anyway for all of this. You do have money for this, so use it wisely. And do it quietly without setting off alerts. If you see me, I can't keep hacking. So quiet, right? That's best case scenario is the teams behave differently. They're behaving differently, then that's not your genuine risk. It isn't, right? Worst case scenario, they try to stop you. Again, not your genuine risk. Go through that, clean pen test, then you get hacked because you weren't actually operating under the same conditions. Okay? So you do it quietly without setting off alerts. And as a professional, I want to be quiet. I want to do a good job, and that means I don't want you to know I'm there. You're going to take that first vulnerability you find, the good one, right? The one that you know can make a difference. You're going to establish a foothold. That's your first order vulnerability. Do not share that vulnerability. Now, you're worried about someone using it. Trust me, if it's been there for 2 years, they would have used it by now. Okay? There's marginal risk at that point. You use it. Then you move on to the next one and the next one. That's how you get your second and third order vulnerabilities. Okay? It's also the only way to set severity. If you're giving that vulnerability up right away, even if it's critical, you're guessing again because you didn't use it. You keep moving forward and inward. That's how you become effective when you're doing a pen test. You are not just a hacker, but you're a white hat. And the only difference ultimately ends up being is you're polite about it and you give back whatever you take, right? Also, it means doing something like adversary emulation, which is a little bit newer. You're going to select a threat actor that's out there right now. You're going to learn about their tactics, techniques, and procedures. You're going to package them together and set them off. Okay? For each stage in the threat actor's campaign, you should be seeing alerts. All right? Are you? And this is about checking your work. This means not just auditing it and making sure everything's there on a list, but you're putting it to the test. Right? If you're not seeing those alerts for each of those stages in the operation, you need to make some changes. Okay? Now, I do want to say this is a lot, right? And this is more of an introduction to these issues. We want to get people to know about them. We want you to be interested in learning more about the things that we've done, the things that we've seen. Okay? We're going to talk about this topic, these three, root causes, like solution-based engineering versus problem-based engineering at another time. 20 minutes is not enough. VAPT versus a penetration test. We need to talk about the differences and why, right? More than just what I've said today. And then second-hand knowledge or tool-based knowledge versus first-hand knowledge. Right? We're also going to talk a little bit about some of our successful points of entry into the transportation systems. This is Thailand. Right? This is not overall in our life in different places. This is Thailand. Right? These things, for the most part, are not public. So obviously we'll be skirting some edges there. But you need to know exactly where your weak points are. Transportation systems, telecommunications networks, public utilities. One last change I wanted to make there. Payment systems is actually what that one should have been on the last. Don't want to get myself in trouble with the government agency thing. So we're going to talk about that in more detail. It's one thing to say that you've done it. It's quite another to actually try to learn from it and share what you've learned so people can improve. Trust me, this has already been shared with the relevant people. We just need to make sure that we learn from what happened overall, and the only way to do that is actually to talk about it a little bit more. Okay. This is a little bit here. Obviously, the company that I'm with, we specialize in these things. We can answer questions on these sorts of things. Talk to us. We're not looking to sell you anything. I mean, we'd love to do, obviously, but we do this really well. And so if there's anything that you need to know, if there's anything that you have questions about, you need referrals somewhere, we know lots of good people in Thailand for this sort of stuff besides us. All right. Be happy to help you. So, that's it.